like were recorded. Then I figured out I can't be able to record and be the one presenting. So is there somebody who's willing to record the session for us? Oh, Mother. Okay, Mother, you're recording. Okay, that's great. Okay, so welcome to the class. Today we're going to get more hands-on. So brace yourselves. It's not introduction anymore, but we got this. So I hope you can see my screen. Hello, guys. Okay. And also, before I share completely, when I'm sharing the screen, I'm not able to see the chat. So if you have a burning question that you really, really need to ask, kindly unmute your mic, just interrupt me. Okay. Okay, guys, I need somebody to unmute and say okay so that I continue.
Okay.
Okay, so yep. So if you can see my screen, today we are doing Python programming basics. Before I even start like with the slideshare and everything, why are we learning Python? I mean, we are doing AI and ML. Why are we learning Python? Any guesses or facts?
Ma-
Like,
mm,
mhm.
it's because we use Python mainly in programming for artificial intelligence and machine learning.
Yeah, Python is like the main language for data science, data analysis at some point, and most of machine learning, deep learning frameworks are Python based. And it's important for us to know Python because that's what we're going to interact most with in our practicals. Okay, so the outline, we're going to learn the basic data types, the container types such as lists, dictionaries, tuples. Don't worry about the words here. We're going to figure out everything as we go. We're going to learn about variable, control structures, like that's like the loops. We're going to learn about function, something about classes, modules, exceptions, the libraries, and so on. And don't worry about the words. By the end of the lesson, we'll all figure out what at least everything means here. So when we talk about Python, the language was created by somebody called, yeah, that name, this name. Yeah, so he created Python when he was at Google. That was in 1991. Python language is an open source language. It's open source, meaning it's out there. It's for everyone. It's you don't need a license to do Python or to use their libraries or anything. Also, being open source, it means like people can contribute. We have like a strong Python community, people always improving the codes, improving the when I talk about libraries, we are going to learn more about libraries also. Yeah, improving those libraries, and because of that, that has made Python grow so much, and it's now like useful in many aspects. It's useful in automation, it's useful in data science, it's useful in web development. I don't know if you guys have heard like the Django frameworks. It's used to make APIs. Also, don't worry if you're not familiar with it, but you can always ask a question. Yeah, so it has a lot of uses, so it makes it like a flexible language. Yes. Okay, so he's now at Microsoft. And he named it after a comedy show that's called Monty Python's Flying Circus. So I think that was like the it show at that time. And it's a scripting language. So what do we mean by scripting? Script. We're trying to write a script. So basically, a script is a small program meant for one-time use. Okay, the more we use Python, the more we are going to see that script aspect of it. It's targeted towards small and medium, but I want to say this because nowadays a lot of big projects are also, maybe when it was created, yes, it was targeted towards small and medium, but nowadays a lot of companies have adapted to Python, and it's used by big companies. Google, Yahoo, YouTube uses Python, by many Linux distributions, by games and apps. So you can see it's already like in the market, and it has been adopted by a lot of companies out there. So it's also a great language to learn for programming purposes, not a bad language. And it's also easy. So if you've not ever done programming, then you start with Python, you're going to be more encouraged because it's an easy language. It's closer to English compared to some programming languages, let's say C, Java, and so on. So it's called an interpreted language. When you say Python is interpreted, we mean okay, let me just give you an example. We have other high-level languages that are called compiled programming language. Then you have the Python, which is interpreted. So interpreted is like it is interpreting line by line. Let's say you are giving a speech. So a speech can be interpreted line by line, but now when we talk of compiling, it's like more like you have to read through the whole speech, then now you maybe deliver the speech or something. Like that's just a random example. I don't even know if it's, but that's what I'm trying to say. So for Java, for C, the program has to be okay before it runs. So if it has an error, it won't run. But Python, it will run line by line until it emits an error. Like it reads line by line. Okay, so according to research, compiled languages are much faster than interpreted, but interpreted is more flexible because you don't have to define a data type. You're just, it's going to interpret it, you know. Yeah, that's just a small introduction about Python. Just like enough tips that will help us understand the code. For Python, we use indentation to make the code, let's say, more clear. Okay, it's like the instruction for Python is indentation. Block structure indicated by indentation. So we are going to code some stuff, so don't worry, we're going to see where this comes. The first assignment to a variable creates it. That is, no, you don't need to declare a variable. Like when I say x is equals to 5, y is equals to 10, when I run that code, Python will interpret it as integer. But then if I was coding something like C, I would have specified int x is equals to 5. Int this, char this. Like you have to specify the data type. You have to say this is it, And then when you talk about an assignment operator, this one, it's like I'm trying to say, when I say x is equals to 8, it's like I'm assigning 8 to a variable name called x. So equal sign is called an assignment operator in Python. But then when I say x, oh God, let me just put a comma there. When I say x is equals to 8, I mean x, it's equal, it's the same as 8. So for to say equals, we use double equal signs, but to assigning a value to a variable, we use the single equal sign. Okay, so for the numbers, the addition, minus, subtraction, subtraction, multiplication, division, percentages are as expected. So when I say 2 plus 2, it's just the same as literally 2 plus 2. It's equals to 4 for Python. When I say 5 minus 4, it's equals to 1. And we use plus for string concatenation. We're going to experiment this in a few. We use this percentage sign for string formatting. Okay, I think this class will be more practical in a few because it's hard to explain a code. Then we have the logical operators, and, or, what. You still use them in Python. And then the basic printing command is called print. So when we want to say hello world, we just say print. Because it's a function, we put some brackets, then we say hello world. And that's it. So any questions so far, or any concern, anything, any comment? Hello guys, I want us to be collaborative and just say if you're good, if you understand, or if you don't, I can still start afresh again. So are we together?
Ma.
Yes.
Okay, so we have variable and types. What's a variable? A variable represents a value. So the way I've said x is equals to 8, we're assigning 8 to a variable name called x. So we use the assignment statement, as we've said. It assigns a value to a variable. For example, when I say name is equals to comrade, this is the name is the variable name. I don't even know why I used name. Let me see name 1. Name 1 is the variable name, and comrade is the value of that variable. So when I assign a variable, I don't have to always go and say quote unquote comrade. I can always use the name that I have given to the variable. That's why they are important when you're doing coding. Using the right types, the right data types. So in Python, as I've said, you don't need to specify the data type that you're coding because it is going to interpret it anyway. So you don't need to specify float this, int this. No, you just say 100, 100.2. If it's a string, of course, there are some rules. If it's a string, you have to put the, quote and quotes. This, if I'm talking about a string, I have to say something. Let's say like lesson 1. Of course, it's like the other programming languages still follows that rule for strings, but then you don't need to specify that it's a string. It's going to interpret it. And it's also important that we know the basic data types. We have integer, the normal integers, floating points, floats. It's like for, let's say, decimals. Then we have strings. We have various data types, but these are the most common or the most basic ones. And also, we talked about indentation in Python, but we also have another aspect of Python, the white space. White space is important because indentation is part of the white space. It makes you create a neat code, but it's not just for the neat code, it's the rule. If you don't follow the indentation rule, your code will have an error. Will have an error that's called indentation error, literally. So it's very important in Python. So I'm going to refer with C, the C programming. You have to always put the curly brackets before you start a block of code. Then when you finish, you have to close. But in Python, you don't have to do that. As long as there's the white space, you follow the right indentation, your code is okay. Another aspect of every programming language, including Python, it's the conditional and looping statements. So when you talk about conditional statements, like condition. These are statements that are executed when a certain condition is met. So if statements cut across like literally all the programming languages. So if in Python goes like this, if this condition is met, do this. Else, do this. Else means if that condition is not met, you're giving it. If you arrive early, do this. If you don't arrive, there has to be an else statement. If that condition is not met, what should we do? Because you're instructing a computer, so you have to give it that a fallback. Yeah. So Python supports only 3 control structures: if, for, and while. Doesn't have a switch. Let me just highlight. Does not support switch statements. So switch statements for Python are mostly executed using if statements. Yeah. So as I've said, it's a conditional statement. So it will only execute when that condition is met. Else, it will execute the else statement. And as I've insisted, Python relies on indentation and white space. I think this slide should have some additional notes. Yeah. So these are just some additional notes just about Python, the way it specifies any non-zero and non-null value to be true, and 0 or a null value as false. So automatically. And then also we have those greater than, greater or equal to, less or equal to. They're the ones that assist in our if statements most of the time. So most of the time when you're using if statement, you find ourselves using this greater than, less than, those things. And also, as I've said, the Python does not support switch statements, but then you can use conditional if statements. But then you can't say if this. So you say if condition 1 is met, do this. If condition 2 this. If, then the final will be else. So you can implement several conditions using if. It's part of the if statement. We have a while statement. They are used to execute a loop. So as we've known, like while statement, even from other programming languages, they execute that condition in a loop until you break it, or until there has to be an endpoint. So for a while statement, if you don't break it, or if you don't end a while statement, it creates an infinity loop. We call it dead loop. So while statement, if you can just say, while this condition is, while this condition exists, do this. That means if that condition is not there anymore, then the while will break. Yeah, don't worry about this. I'm just rushing through the content so that we go to the practical part. There's a for statement. This is also a very core part of the Python. It's also a loop. It helps us to traverse a lot of things. You can traverse a list using for loop. It will go inside the loop, start the first item, the second one, the third one, until the last one. So it's a great looping statement. So that's all I can say. I've attached some flowcharts of how the statements function. So we have an attribute that's called loop nesting. So from the word nesting, it means it's like we are hosting a loop inside a loop. So how does this happen? We have the first loop, then the nested loop, the loop inside the loop, which has to end. Then now we end the first loop. So it will be completely nested inside a loop. So for loops are mostly for loops and while loops. Okay, sorry, just to differentiate this, if is a statement, Then for and while, they are loops. So yeah, so when we talk about loops, we're talking about for loop and the while loop. Yeah, so you can do loop nesting using either for loop or while loop, depending on your situation, depending on what you're trying to achieve with your code. We have also another important aspect, a break statement and a continue statement. So a break statement ends a loop. That when you use a break statement, that's how the loop is. The loop ends at the break statement. But when you use a continue statement, it's like you're telling the code, you can pause here, then you can stop executing from here, then jump to finish the code. So it's like it breaks that part of the code, but will execute the whole code. But for a break statement, it will just end the whole execution. I don't know if that's, I hope it's not confusing. Okay, let me repeat. A break statement, after a break statement, nothing can be executed, but a continuous statement can break a condition and continue. I think that's a better one. Okay, I have an example here. I'm telling this code to first find the first 5 multiples of 6. So the first 5 multiples of 6, that would be 6. 6 times 1, 6 times 2, 6 times 3, 6 times 4, 6 times 5. Yeah, the first 5. So I tell it, before I continue, is there anybody who is floating? I don't want to leave anybody behind, please. Hello, guys. I need you to talk. Like, I know it's hands-on, but it's not hard. So I want us to be at the same page. So any concerns? Are we okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So to explain this code, as we said, this one is an assignment operator. We usually use I because, okay, I integer, but you can call it anything. So I, we have given it a value of 1. We are telling this loop to start at 1. Then our loop, we said our loop executes until that condition ends or it meets a break statement. You have to end the while loop. So we are telling it while that I is less or equal to 10. Because it's a loop, it's going to loop through the numbers until it meets the final condition or a break statement. So we're telling it while that we're starting from 1, but while it's less than 10, you print 6 times the I. But then you've said if I is greater or equal to 5, break. So you see, we have already contradicted this code. We have already told it, I want you to print as long as I is less than 10. So you can print 6 times 1, 6 times 2 until 6 times 10 because we've used less or equal to. This part we've used less or equal to. If we were using less, it would still function as less statement, but less or equal to, we're telling it until it reaches 10, you're going to print 6 times that number. But then now you come it and give it another statement, tell it if that I is greater or equal to 5, break. So what happens? As I said, after a break statement, nothing else will execute. So it won't execute the rest of the code. The rest of the code was supposed to go up to 10, but it's only going to execute up to 5. But now this is a continuous statement. We have assigned a num. It's going to start from 0. While number is, okay, num is the variable name. While num is less than 10, you keep on incrementing, right? And if that number divided by 2 is equals to 0. This means it's an even number. This is usually used to check for even numbers because we've said even numbers are all divisible by 2. So if you're dividing it by 2, if it's this is called modulus. So if its modulus of 2 is 0, that means if you divide it by 2 and you get a 0, which means it's divisible by 2, which means it's an even number, you're telling it continue, then you're telling it to print num. What happens? I was supposed to print the even numbers. Anyways, yeah. So
I have a question.
yes.
In the second code, instead of using modulus, can we use the division?
If divide by 2 is num divided by 2 is equals to 0. We can use the division, but I don't think it will be the most effective depending on how the code. It's like you're telling it divide by 2. Okay, you can just try the code. But then, okay. Hang in there. We're going to run this code. Then we're going to play with it. But I need to reach the part where, oh, nice. Good. Right there. Anyways, so we are going to a bit more practical part. Then you guys can tell me the suggestion that you want us to play with the code. And also, for our program, we'll be using Google. I don't know. It's called Google Colab. It's for Google. It's like a notebook. I chose Google Colab because we don't need to configure anything. Then when you do your code, it's just going to be saved directly in your drive. Okay, you just search Google Colab as I have searched. Then you can open a new notebook. So I chose it because we don't have to have like a whole class of configuring our devices to maybe another text editor, because we have like a lot of text editors where we can do Python. But the most efficient one for data, it's usually the Jupyter Notebook, and that Google Colab offers us like the Jupyter Notebook environment. Yeah, so you just search Google Colab, you open a new notebook, then you start coding. It's going to save in your drive. Of course, there are some limitation. For example, when you're going to do our models and your training, it is there is like a paid version when you want like some extra resources. But for just a normal project, you can still do it. I don't know why it's not. I don't feel like it's opening as it is because it's not giving me an option to save my file. But anyway, oh, this one is a comment in Python, the one that has a hash. It's a comment. So comments are not executed by the code, they are ignored. Just a minute. It's not pasting. Just allow me to open a different Chrome tab. Yeah, this one is better now. It's supposed to give me an opportunity to name my notebook. No, no, I'm not able to copy paste. Totally not pasting, so I need to write the code. Another option will be using, guys, I don't know, I don't want to overwhelm you with information, but there's another engine called Anaconda that has like various, let me just open it. It has various text editors. It even has VS Code in it. It has a Jupyter Notebook, Jupyter Lab. Okay, I prefer Jupyter Notebook because it will allow me to, the indentation part for Python, it's usually good in Jupyter Notebook. This VS Code is not bad, but when it comes to Python, you have to be really careful with the indentation when you're using VS Code because it's not going to guide you a lot. It may, but sometimes it fails. Yeah. What else? Yeah, but we'll be using Google Colab for our projects, unless you have a different POV. This is the Anaconda Navigator. It has like various text editors. This one is my most common, not the notebook. This one is my most common, but also notebook is the same as Jupyter Lab at some point. It has a VS Code, the IBM Watson. This is also for machine learning. It's for IBM for machine learning. The RStudio. RStudio is also like, R is also an important language, especially in statistics. So you can see when you have this, you can, if you want to explore like more text editors and they're all in, Anaconda, you can just download Anaconda, then you can access them. Yeah, but sometimes you don't need to download it. It takes a lot of space in your device. So if it's not important, you have to. I think we can just, as you can see, this one looks the same as it, literally the same thing. As I said, integration is very important. So what we do, I like Jupyter Notebook because you can always come back and it will automatically sort that for you. You said something. If we do num divide by 2.
Yes.
Let's see what we'll get. It has given us everything from 1 to 10. It has not given us the old numbers only. And why is that? Somebody? Even if it's guesswork, why is it that it doesn't work? Why is it that modulus is the one that works, but not the division in this case?
Can I try?
Yeah.
It's because there, when we're initializing the variable is equals to 0, and then you divide the number by 2, meaning, and then it's equals to 2. You continue, and all the numbers are greater than 0. Yeah, so when you print num, all the numbers from 1 to 10 come.
Yeah. But then we had said, we gave one while loop, right? Then we said you increment by 1 in every step. Then we gave it an if statement. It's a good thinking, but we just gave it another if statement. Why is it not listening to us? Like, why is it ignoring the fact that we want only the numbers that are divisible by 2 when they're divided by 2 is equals to 0? Don't think hard, just look into the code. Just look. Why is it executing like that? Let me comment out this part. I think that's how we learn. Let's not use the continue statement first. Print num is supposed to print 1 to 10. So, which means when we are using our if divide by 2, it's like it's not even listening to us, you know. But I like the way you think. I like that. So I want like a more precise answer.
Okay, I think I can say that when you divide all these numbers by 2, none of them gives you 0, so that you can continue to the next number. When you divide, for instance, 1 divided by 2, it's 0 point something. If you divide 3 divided by 2, it's 1 point something. They're not exactly 0. So in that case, it doesn't continue. It just prints all the numbers without skipping.
And why is it that when we say modulus, it listens to our command? Like when we say divide by 2, okay, the modulus of 2, that means you have divided by 2, then the outcome is 0. Why is it that it's listening to that part and it's not listening to the divide by 2?
According to how I understand how modulus works, modulus gives you the remainder. So when we say if into brackets 3 divide by 2, then the 3 modulus 2, then the remainder is 1. And if the remainder is 1 and 1 is